Canada is prepared to contribute $550 million to cover the costs of the project components on the Michigan side.
Now, I'll tell you what this is about. More than $120 billion of goods crosses the Detroit-Windsor border each year, most carried by the 2.7 million trucks, I know, that use the Ambassador Bridge. The numbers will probably double within about 20 years. There's a proposal to build another bridge, we need it, which will bring work to countless people and inject money onto both sides of the border. But the Americans are reluctant to spend $250 million, a very small amount in all of this, really, for a customs plaza on its side of the bridge. Why? Thad Makoto was a representative from 2003 to 2012. He's an American, a Republican, a good guy. He joins us from Detroit. So why are the Americans so reluctant to spend what is really a very small amount of money that will bring so much cash and work into the United States of America?
Well, it's a very divisive issue here in Detroit, and that's always kind of been the problem, Michael, is that the area has not been able to speak with one voice, either to Ottawa or to Washington, or even in Lansing itself. There's the existing bridge, the Ambassador Bridge. There's the existing tunnel, the Windsor Tunnel. There's also a train tunnel. And the question is, with so many pressing problems facing the city of Detroit, facing Michigan, and even the United States in terms of its fiscal policies, is this something they need to do right now? And the inability to have a coalition, or at least a large plurality or majority of individual Americans to support it, has really hurt the cause.
But Canada is going to put up most of the money. It's building its own customs plaza, and most of the money will, of course, for the bridge come from this country. It benefits both nations. And when we say $250 million, of course, it sounds a huge amount, but for government spending, it isn't. Is there something political here? I mean, Keystone and Barack Obama, once the great friend of Canada, now it seems indifferent, if not an enemy. Do politics play a part as well?
Oh, absolutely. You have someone who owns the bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, privately held, that has offered to build one or is variously opposed to second span. But what you also run into is the concern about the fiscal straits that the United States finds itself in. Obviously, large segments of the Tea Party are against what they perceive to be a massive infrastructure proposal worthy of FDR or LBJ, rather than something that may actually increase not only the commerce but the comity between the United States and Canada.
Got another clip here of our delegate from Transport Canada who was in the United States talking about this. And she makes some very cogent points in a very moderate manner. Let's have another look, please.
I want to clarify categorically, this will not be a loan. We are very aware that nobody in Michigan wants to assume any responsibility, financial obligations in the future to repay back what Canada has offered to contribute towards this project.
So we know long term, I mean, you don't have to be an economist to know this, long term, that the gains, the benefits will be enormous. But it's a strange coalition, really, people on the left and the right. You mentioned the Tea Party, who are so reluctant to spend $250 million. I don't know, I find it very enervating that people can be so short-sighted.
Well, I think you have to understand in the United States, there's skepticism, not necessarily regarding the Canadian government, but there's always skepticism regarding our state government, regarding our federal government, in terms of this is not a loan, this will not cost you anything. We've heard that before. We've heard that in other circumstances where we get to keep our doctor, too. So you have to understand the average citizen is very chary of this. But I think that you're right about the times. Over a period of time, the trade that is so beneficial to both Canada and the United States is only going to increase. But I do add this caveat. There is also some concern growing amongst people that under NAFTA, goods that are shipped to Canada come into the United States. They can't be discriminated against. They can't be levied against or put any penalties against. But with the Communist Chinese, concern about the Communist Chinese using that as a transshipment point whereby any type of trade war or retaliation that they may engage in or be necessary in the future could be hindered by that relationship. So that's another concern. But in the end, I would just, speaking for myself as a Detroiter who proposed to his wife on the shores of Grand Bend on Lake Huron, the relationship between the Canadians and the United States is not the issue here. It is an internal issue amongst Detroiters, amongst people of Michigan, and amongst the citizens regarding the government in Washington.
Yeah. You know, many Canadians cross over at Sarnia in Ontario, which I do on a pretty regular basis, and there are roadworks going on for the longest time, which must cost a huge amount of money, very long term. The money is there if the will is there, I'm sure.
Well, I think that's the question, is the will. When does the will provide the way? And at this present time, this is an issue that's been here for quite some time. But again, I just wish to reassure people. I mean, look, I'm one of those kids who grew up enjoying the fact that the age of majority in Canada was 19. So I think that as time goes on, the necessity of the economics of it, the reality of it, eventually they're going to see that second span. The question is, who owns it and when does it happen?
All right. Appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael.